Hallelujah. 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 Giving praise and honor to Jehovah God, thanking him for all of our lives, thanking for strength and good health, and the opportunity to be here this day. You may be seated. Thanking the creator of the heavens and the earth for all that he does for us. For we acknowledge here that there is no king, no creator, no savior beside Jehovah who has created the heavens and the earth. In the beginning, as we read the beginning in the Holy Scriptures, or the beginning of the Bible as people know it to be, it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So as we read throughout the Holy Scriptures, as you read throughout the Bible, there's only one God being spoken of all throughout what you may know as the Old Testament. And we pronounce his name here as Jehovah. So wherever you see the Lord, once again, within the Holy Scriptures, that is where in the Hebrew language, which is the language that the Old Testament was originally written in, that is where you see the name Jehovah, or some pronounce it Yahweh, who is the creator of the heavens and the earth. Okay. As we mentioned, as we say all the time, it's at least 6,500 times mentioned in the Holy Scriptures. Yes, sir. So there's no room for anybody else. Huh. So if you're calling on someone else beside Jehovah, then you're not calling upon God. Okay. Because Jehovah is the only one that speaks all throughout the Holy Scriptures. Okay. And we have the responsibility of keeping the commandments, statutes, and judgments that he has given unto us. He has given unto mankind, and specifically to the children of Yisrael, in order to follow. So we understand that we are the children of Yisrael, the ones that were scattered all throughout the earth. Because as it was just read, it got to a period of time where Jehovah became angry with the children of Yisrael, even though his compassion still is upon us. But when someone does wrong, you have to have some sort of punishment that is instituted to get them back on track. And so the Jehovah God is teaching us the commandments, statutes, as well as the judgments in order to help us get on track. So as we continue to come before the Most High on a weekly basis here to teach the word of the Most High God, we pray that the Most High would teach us all how we should live before him, teach us all the way that we should walk before him, teach us all the truth of his word, so that none leads astray and none gets led astray. So as we read within the Holy Scriptures, and we thank, once again, the Most High God, we thank Jehovah for blessing us with the opportunity to be here this day, to know that this day is a holy day, to know that we are the children of Israel, to know his word, and once again, praying that his presence would be with us here and in all the places that he is allowing the children of Israel to gather before him, in order that we may receive the commandments, statutes, and judgments that is required for us to follow. So even at this time, as we continue to go throughout this portion is called Ki-Teitzei, that as we read throughout this portion, we're going to read numerous commandments, statutes, and judgments. Some are repeated, but most are applicable to today. You might find a few that, because we're not in the land of Yisrael, that we're not able to do certain things. But this portion is a very important portion for us to learn and to understand, because we're going to receive various commandments, statutes, and judgments that would allow us the opportunity to live right before the Most High God. And even at this time, we're going to do this even as a discussion. So, with respect to time and respect to order as well, we'll take comments and questions as we go along. Once again, with respect to time and respect to order, so that way everything goes according to plan. And then, but overall, just to mention that, as teachers come up here on a weekly basis and teach the word, that we have to be attentive, whether physically in the building or online. Sometimes there are things that are said that are outbursts, maybe online, that you wouldn't accept in the place physically. Right. So you have to consider outbursts online as though they were outbursts in the place. That's right. Because it actually throws people that are trying to pay attention off. So just wanted to put that out there. But today we'll relax that rule just a little bit, but once again with respect to time and with respect to order, because once again we're going to read about a lot of things that are pertinent to today. So we're going to begin in this portion called Ki-Teitzei, which means when you go out, or also if you go out.
Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 10. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
When thou goest forth to battle against thine enemies, and Yahweh thy God deliver them into thy hand, and thou carriest them away captive, and see amongst them a captive woman of goodly form, thou hast a desire unto her, and would take her to be your wife. Then thou shalt bring the woman into thy house, and she shall shave her head, and pare her nails, and she shall put the raiments of captivity from off her, and shall remain in thy house, and bewail her father and her mother a full month. And after that thou mayest go in unto her, and be her husband, and she shall be thy wife. And it shall be, if thou have no delight in her, and thou shalt let her go whither she will, but thou shalt not sell her at all for money. Thou shalt not deal with her as a slave, because thou hast humbled her.
So this portion is within a chapter that continues on, or a specific section, as Moses is speaking to the children of Israel about going forth to war. So that's why it may seem that strange that this portion starts off with this, but when you read, starting from Deuteronomy chapter 20, it goes in line with how, or the conduct of going forth to war. So now this is the procedure of coming back from war, because once again in the previous chapters we saw how Jehovah God said that we should go forth to war. Before going to war, the people that you would separate, the people that would be able to go forth, how you would take a siege around a city and things like that. So now this is post-war as you're coming back. So it says that you see among the captives that there's a woman that you want to marry. And basically the bottom line with everything is it says in the end that if you don't like her, so to speak, to bring it up to today's times, that you cannot sell her for money and you cannot deal with her as a slave or servant, as slave as it's translated here, because that has humbled her. And the reason why you can't do that, because you didn't take her to be a servant, you took her to be a wife. Right. That's what it said from the few verses up. It says that you liked her and you made her go through the procedure of, shaving her head, paring her nails, and dwelling within your home for a month, and then you go into her and she shall be your wife. So as she is your wife, you have to deal with her as a wife. So when you have a wife and you no longer want to be with the wife, you don't sell the wife.
Right.
You don't mistreat the wife. You would divorce the wife. And that's what, we're going to speak about divorce later on in this portion, but that's why the Most High is speaking about this servant, well not this servant, this woman that comes in that is not a servant, because she's of a foreign nation. And all throughout the Holy Scriptures, Jehovah God is teaching these commandments that are fair and equitable to all.
Everybody.
It's about justice. It's not about people ruling over another in rigor or taking advantage of one another. We read all throughout that we should not oppress anybody. So even though somebody is a foreigner, we are not allowed to oppress them, as we are going to read in this portion as well. So it says here, so who is this person, before we go on, who is this person that might see this woman that he likes and he wants to marry her?
A warrior.
A soldier?
Or a prince.
Or a prince? Who else?
Not a priest.
Not a priest. Officer.
Anybody.
Captain. And you said?
Anybody.
Anybody.
Amen.
If time permitted, we'll discuss why the priest can't do that. But this goes for everybody. When you go to Numbers chapter 31, it gives you the rules of what you do when you bring people back from war.
Right.
This is not a soldier that saw the woman while he was out there in battle and brought her back.
Right. Right.
It says you saw her among the captives. What's the first thing that happens when you bring captives back?
You kill captives.
Huh?
No, you kill the one that had no men.
Right. You kill the ones that have no men. No, because it says you're not a slave.
It says you kill the ones that have no men.
Have known men. Have known men. Because once again, just in interest of time, we won't go there. Numbers chapter 31, when you read from verse 25, it tells you when you bring captives back from war, you take account, you split it between those that went to war and those that did not go to war. So there are captives that go to those that went forth to war, the soldiers, and then you have the rest of the nation that also, quote unquote, benefits from all of the spoils of war. Right. Then it says that 1 out of 500 of the ones that for the soldiers goes to the priests, and then the 1 out of 50 for the portion that goes to the rest of the nation, that goes to the Levites. So that's why this could be anybody, any man, whether he went forth to war or not, that sees a woman amongst the captives. Because you have to make that separation first and make sure that the priests and the Levites get their portion first. Then the rest goes to the soldiers and the nation. So that's why, once again, the answer is everybody. Because once again, it has always been taught that this is just a soldier that, quote unquote, benefits from this rule, but it's for everybody. Because she is seen among the captives. Right. So to be seen among the captives is like with all of the spoils of war, you see the spoils there. Continue.
If a man have 2 wives, the one beloved and the other hated. If a man have 2 wives, yes sir, one beloved and the other hated, and they have borne him children, the beloved and the hated. If the firstborn be hers that was hated, then it shall be in the day that he calls his sons to inherit that which he hath, that he may not make the son of the beloved the firstborn before the son of the hated, who is the firstborn. But he shall acknowledge the firstborn, the son of the hated, by giving him a double portion of all that he hath, for he is his first fruits of his strength. The right of the firstborn is his. So once again, this section is also talking about equity for all. So as it says, if a man has 2 wives, because these rules that are given here are given to regulate things that are already permitted. So being that what we would know today, the term today is polygyny in Yisrael, or just polygyny in ancient society, is permitted and permitted by God as well. God is just giving parameters on how one should conduct themselves when doing so. So it said that you have a situation where a man had the 2 wives, there's one that's hated and one that's loved. And the person would say, well, why would you be with somebody that you hate? Right. We don't think about marriage today the way people thought about marriage back then. There's a lack of respect for marriage today. People consider marriage just as a regular relationship today. People get into marriages easy and get out even easier. And that's not how it's supposed to be. So because the man has a wife that's hated, there's still a respect for the marriage. Jacob had started off with 2 wives. Leah felt hated. God saw that she was hated. Jacob was tricked into marrying Leah. He respected the marriage. That's things we don't do today. People get upset, a broken dish, people want to get divorced. The decibels of the voice went too high. Oh, man. Time for a divorce. That's right. But when we think about what marriages actually meant back then, it was much more than what we consider it today. Because it wasn't just you involved. And that's why there's sometimes a celebration of the marriage. When you think about ancient societies and how they conducted weddings, it was the whole village that was taking part of that celebration. It's not today where you send out certain invitations because you got to pay for certain things, and because things are expensive, you're out of RSVP. Back then, marriages was for everybody because everybody is taking part of this, witnessing this entire thing. And once you have an entire village witnessing something, that also minimizes the problems within the marriage. Yeah. So when you have situations where we talk about today about domestic violence, you have an entire village that's watching a situation. It doesn't mean that if you have a wedding that there won't be domestic violence. But what happens is today, because people have weddings and then they end up moving away from family and people that they know, people are in their house doing what they shouldn't be doing anyway. Right. But when you have eyes of a community upon you, it keeps everybody in check. But getting back to this point, the reason why it's not as simple as the wife was hated and you let her go is because everybody is back then respected the marriage. Right. It had to be something serious that caused the marriage to be dissolved. But regardless what this law is saying is that regardless of how an individual felt about the wife, the right of the son is what is more important. Right. So it's not about how you feel about the wife, it's what's supposed to be due to the children. So the man's firstborn is going to get the double portion because that's the man's firstborn. That's it. The only reason why Reuben didn't get the firstborn, even though he was the firstborn of Jacob and Leah, is because Reuben messed up. Right. If the son messed up, then that's the problem. If the son doesn't mess up, you give him the double portion of what's due to him. Continue. If a man have a stubborn and rebellious son, that will not hearken to the voice of his father or the voice of his mother, though they chasten him, will not hearken unto them, then shall his father and his mother lay hold on him and bring him out to the elders of his city, unto the gate of his place. And they shall say unto the elders of his city, this our son is stubborn and rebellious. he does not hearken to the voice of his father or his mother, he is a glutton and a drunkard. And all the men of the city shall stone him with stones that he die. So shall you put away the evil from the midst of thee, and all Yisrael shall hear and fear.
And that's a consistent theme all throughout from, once again, as we've been reading probably from Deuteronomy chapter 13, that you do things to put away the evil from the midst of you, and all Yisrael shall hear and fear.
That's right.
As it was said 2 weeks ago, judgments are not supposed to be secret.
That's right.
When people mess up, and now we're going to speak specifically about children messing up. When children mess up, and it's something that goes beyond the household. Because it mentioned here that the parents spoke to the child, they try to correct the child, and it said that they chastised the child, meaning chastise usually means beat.
Right.
So even with, and there's no problem with parents beating children. That's just no problem. It becomes a problem in 2022. But in scripture, there's no problem with parents beating children. So they even beat the child. They did what they could to correct the child. Speaking, beating doesn't work. So they take the child up, and once again, it was spoken last week that this is not something, we're reading things as, just reading things. But these are not simple things to implement. So it's going to be very difficult for a parent to take their child up to the judges, knowing that once they do this, the child is going to be dead.
That's right.
This is not a situation where they're taking it to the judges, and compared to anything else, there's no diligent inquiry here.
Right. Right.
The parents brought them up, so the judges are taking the word of the parents.
That's right.
This is not investigation. This is not, we need to check things out. The parents did what they could to the best of their ability, but it may hurt the parent, but it benefits the entire nation. Okay. Because you don't need a rebellious child growing up amongst the nation, because rebellious children influence other children to be rebellious. Because once again, what happens today is that we spend more time focusing on rebellious children, and the children that do good, they get no attention.
Uh-oh.
There were children that go through school, get straight A's, and nobody acknowledges them. But you have weekly meetings for people that mess up all the time. So the child is getting a straight A, so in order for me to get attention, let me mess up.
Right. Uh-huh.
That's the thing that's backwards the way we do things today. People, once again, when we talk about judgment, it's about justifying the righteous and condemning the wicked.
Right.
It's not about ignoring the righteous and just focusing on the wicked.
Right.
Elevate the righteous. Pay attention to the righteous.
Right.
This is an extreme matter, once again, where you have a child that's stubborn and rebellious. And it gets to there are a lot of words that within this portion that actually only appear within this portion. Mm-hmm. And sometimes there are words here that are translated different in other sections of the Holy Scriptures as well. Uh-huh. So there's the word that says glutton, which is zolel, which actually when you read it, it means someone that just is worthless.
Right.
Okay.
So the parent is saying that the child is worthless and a drunkard. There's no use for this child in the house or in the community. So therefore, the parents take the child up, and you get to exterminate the evil in the midst of you. Okay. That's how you allow the community to progress once you get evil out of the midst of you. Because if you don't get evil out of the midst of you, evil is going to take over. That's just how it is. Because that's how God spoke it. That's why He said when you go into the land of Canaan, remove all of the people there, because they are going to influence you. So this is an extreme matter once again, that the parents would take the child up. And that's how, and once again, once the judgment is inflicted, this is for everybody to hear. So once again, if children are doing something that extends, because if parents beat their child or chastise their children or speak to their children in the house, that's an in-house thing. Once it goes outside the house and the congregation is involved, the community is involved, the nation is involved, the judgment should be done so that all children receive. This is not how you should act. Continue.
22. If a man had committed a sin worthy of death, and he be put to death, and thou hang him on a tree, his body shall not remain all night upon the tree, but thou shalt surely bury him the same day. For he that is hanged is a reproach unto Jehovah, that thou defile not the land which Jehovah thy God giveth thee for an inheritance.
Because there are different ways that people are punished. We read about stoning. Most of the times we read about stoning. There were people that are burned. There are people that beheaded and hung. So being hung is a judgment. But even within the judgment, God is saying, don't leave that body just hanging up there.
Right.
That's an abomination. Anybody that's hung. If you know anybody that's been hung, anybody that's, if you read anywhere where anybody's been hung, it's an abomination. So when you think about what was done to the children of Yisrael, even within this country where we were hung up on trees and lynched all throughout this country, think about how much anger God has towards us, that He would allow us to be abominations in His sight.
Wow.
Because once again, it says anybody that is hung is a reproach unto God. So we became a reproach unto God, and God allowed other nations to hang us. But of course, as it was just said, that they will also receive their punishment, just like Egypt received their punishment for what they did to us. But for that to happen to us, we became reproachful in the sight of God. But God is basically saying that once you inflict this type of punishment of hanging, you take the body down and you bury it that same day, so that that person doesn't defile the land. Continuing, going into chapter 22.
Thou shalt not see thy brother's ox or his sheep driven away, and hide thyself from them. Thou shalt surely bring them back unto thy brother. And if thy brother be not near unto you, then thou know him not, then thou shalt bring it home to thy house, and it shall be with thee until thy brother require it, and thou shalt restore it him. So shalt thou do with his ass, and so shalt thou do with his garment, and so shalt thou do with every lost thing of thy brother's which he hath lost, and thou hast found. Thou mayest not hide thyself.
And once again, this is a repeat from something that is mentioned in Exodus chapter 22. And in Exodus chapter 22, it mentions that this is your enemy. So here it's saying your brother, but so basically it's anybody that you see that needs help.
That's right.
So now in the situation where you find something that somebody lost, and you know who it belongs to, maybe as it says in Exodus 22, it's somebody that, as order to give the exact translation, your hater. Someone that hates you, and you know the person hates you, the person does not like you. It doesn't mean that if you find something of theirs that you don't return it to them. You just do the law. The relationship you have with the individual doesn't stop you from doing things that are right.
Right.
So God is saying here that as you know, anything that you find, and if you don't know who it is, you find something. You don't find something in a camp. You don't find something in a congregation and think that it belongs to you.
Okay.
You find it. Let people know you found it. If you're gonna pick it up and let people know you found it, ask who it is. And if it gets to the point where you're gonna hold it until somebody asks of it, let people know, I'm gonna hold this till somebody asks for it. Don't get caught finding something and then picking it, and then later on when somebody asks for it, then you say, oh, I was just holding it for somebody else because I didn't know who it belonged to. Make it known that, because especially today, make it known that you're gonna hold it until somebody asks for it. But once again, it's not about the term, as you may hear, finders keepers, losers weepers. You find something, you find who lost it. You do your best to find who lost it. The best you can to find out who lost it. Even if you find something out there in the streets, you do your best to find out who lost it. There's lost and founds out there. You know, some people may not like finding $10,000 and give it to the police.
Now I'm keeping that.
To
It's cash. It's cash.
Some people may not like finding $20,000 somewhere around the corner from a bank and asking if anybody withdrew $20,000 today.
That's a heavy word.
So that's what I'm saying. Some people may not, but you keep the $20,000 today, or you could give it back. You might get $40,000 tomorrow. Those that God could bless you. God could definitely bless you. Think about it.
Maybe that's your blessing.
No,
Don't got no bank slip, don't got nothing.
No ID.
Can I give you a quick story?
I know your story.
I found $1,000 with no bank slip in front of a building.
In front of a building, right? Yeah, in front of, no, I was saying in the bank, like somebody could have withdrawn exactly. No, if you find $1,125 and in front of a bank or in a bank, I'm pretty sure the bank will let you know who withdrew $1,125 that day. Or are you going to go through the effort of doing this? That's where the question comes in. So some heads were shaking. No? But in the interest of time, let's continue.
Thou shalt not see thy brother's ox or his ass fallen down by the way, and thou hide thyself from them. Thou shalt surely help him to lift them up.
So if you see somebody in trouble, basically what it's saying, you help them in Exodus 22. It says your enemy, once again, or someone who hates you. You see somebody that's struggling in any situation, your brother or someone that you know doesn't like you. They have they have their car broken down, the hood is up, you're late for work, they already got the cables hanging out the car. Someone that cursed you out last week, what are you gonna do? Think about that. But once again, the law is actually saying to help.
Right.
You know, you see somebody at the, you're driving, you see somebody at the bus stop, pick them up. Yeah, or don't turn the other way. You might see somebody around the corner from the camp walking the wrong way, and you're just driving by, pick them up. Find out where they're going. Continue. I didn't mention no names.
Verse 5.
You gave yourself up by looking up.
A woman shall not wear that which pertains to a man, neither shall a man put on a woman's garment, for whoso doeth these things is an abomination to Yehovah thy God.
So we're going to spend as limited time as possible on this. There are going to be commandments here that we read. Once again, this should have been the disclosures for the beginning. That these are things that are all important for us. That was already said. Then there were going to be some things that are controversial amongst the nation, and then there are going to be things that we're going to say based on what the teaching of D.C.B is. And it's not to go against what anybody else is saying. But what we read here, a woman shall not wear that which pertains to a man, neither shall a man put on a woman's garment, for whosoever doeth these things is an abomination to Yehovah thy God. So if you don't want to be an abomination, you want to make sure you keep this law to the best way of your ability. And don't try to say that it means something other than what you know it to be, or what people would say it would be. So the teaching here in D.C.B and various congregations is that men don't wear dresses,
right,
and women don't wear pants.
Right.
Because that's what this law is saying, that one gender does not wear the clothing that belongs to another gender.
That's right.
So if you could find, because you could probably find dresses in the big and tall store today. Just because you find dresses in the big and tall store doesn't mean that a man should wear it. So just because there's pants in the women's store doesn't mean that women should wear it.
That's it.
So it's not about where it's sold. It's about the clothing itself. There may be other interpretations. In the interest of time, we'll probably take 1 minute, whether here online somebody could give us a different interpretation of this so that we can discuss it. We want to make sure that we actually discuss all of these to the best of our ability within the time that we have. Shalom.
All right, so in the Hebrew, it says, Lo hiye kali gever.
Mhm.
And this is the argument that a lot of women use. Kali gever, of course, is soldier's garment.
Well, that would be, well, let me finish, yeah. Okay.
But what they need to consider,
Okay. I say that to the mic then, so they can hear you. Making sure. Okay.
that pants are new as far as women wearing them.
Right.
Early 1900s, they just started wearing pants. So, yes, Kali gever, we didn't have women warriors, but also women didn't wear pants in ancient days. They just started wearing pants.
So what Maury Irani is saying is that women started wearing pants early 1900s, and that there is a argument that says that because in the Hebrew it says kli gever, that it means that people take it to mean that a woman should not wear a warrior's things, I guess. So it uses the word gever in the first part of the verse, but it also uses the word gever. This is not a response to you, even I'm looking that way. It uses the word gever in the second part of the verse. So if people are saying that gever strictly means soldier, then they're saying that a woman should not wear a soldier's clothing,
right,
and that a soldier should not wear a woman's garment, which means that any other man that is not a soldier
right
could wear women's garments.
Which makes no sense.
Because the word gever is used in both sections of the verse. The word gever is used by Bilam when he's talking about he's the man that is falling down with eyes open. In the book of Job, Job says that cursed be the one that said a man-child is born this day, and they use the word gever for a man-child. So gever does not mean soldier.
Thank you.
So any other, I don't know if any other interpretations that may be out there that are online before we continue, once again in the interest of time. I saw his hand up.
I don't know. All my dream of been, I never see anyone in there wear pants till I was older. By my old, they didn't wear pants, so there is something.
Right.
They were Christian people, but I believe in my heart they knew something about law. Because I never see them wear, I think I wear a is I remember when the dresses was up here
Mm-hmm.
and everybody seen your butt.
Uh-oh.
I never see people in the street like
Right.
that.
So-
So you have to be careful too.
So that's from Imamuna, who's, we acknowledge, turned 90 a few weeks ago, maybe a few months ago. So at 90 years old, she's saying that she didn't see women wearing pants until she got older. And older for her would probably be 70, because she's 90. So that means all this time she wasn't seeing women wearing pants till she got older. Yes.
To go back over what he was saying, I remember my grandma
Mhm.
would have been around her age.
Right.
The same thing, women didn't wear pants.
Right.
And if they did wear pants, those were either street women or.
Oh.
Now, even as recent as my age, my era, when jeans, they didn't used to have jeans for women.
Mhm.
They used to just have jeans, and the women used to purchase the
Right.
jeans. Just with time, with the designers and things, then they started making jeans to fit a woman's so-called
Mhm.
body or proportion, so it lets you know that clothes were not
Right.
made for
Women. So that's a comment from someone that's not 90 years old. We won't give her age. She had a birthday a few months ago, and she's saying that she remembers when she was younger that there were not jeans in women's clothing stores, that women used to go to men's clothing stores to get jeans. Yeah,
those were for
man.
those were for men.
And for-
Women used to have, they used to look funny in them because they didn't have to fit your shoes.
Right.
So then with time, you had the Gloria Vanderbilt, the Jordan Ash, and things came along.
Well, she's mentioned some designers that
Fit for
showing her
women.
age. She mentioned Jordache.
Never heard of it.
Surgery, wow, she going.
Never heard of it.
You're speaking above this pay grade right here, because Jordache.
It was so that today women wear pants in a church and those things. I never seen that when I was growing up.
You still, that would be rare even today, because people know, even in a quote-unquote religious setting, women still put on skirts and dresses as well. Yeah. And even not so long ago, if you look at, well, we'll talk about that later. But yeah, women didn't really wear pants until later on. Not just mention, if you watch old videos of concerts and things like that, you would see how people dressed even in the 80s. And you know, just watching some old Sting videos recently, Sting in Jamaica, you would see entertainers on stage and then the women in the crowd just wearing skirts and dresses, gowns out in the crowd. So that became something later on. But once again, let's continue.
If a bird's nest chance to be before thee in the way, and any tree or on the ground with young ones or eggs, and the dam sitting upon the young or upon the eggs, thou shalt not take the dam with the young. Thou shalt in any wise let the dam go, but the young thou mayest take unto thyself, that it may be well with thee, and that thou mayest prolong thy days.
So simply said, you find a nest, once again, being on the ground, or just all on the way, not necessarily specifically on the ground, but as it says here, but within arm's reach. The mother is on the nest, that you let the mother go away and you keep the babies and the eggs. And for those that say that you cannot eat eggs, there will probably be no other reason for you to take the eggs and let the mother go if you're not going to eat the eggs. Unless you find some other use for the eggs.
Yeah, no.
Continue.
When thou buildest a new house, then thou shalt make a parapet for thy roof, that thou bring not blood upon thy house if any man fall from thence.
So the parapet is just some sort of fence or some sort of upraised enclosure that goes around the top of the house, so that you don't have just a flat roof. Somebody falls over it, quote unquote, accidentally. And if somebody does that and you don't have that parapet or that fence around your roof, then there's blood on your house and ultimately blood upon you, because you become responsible for that person's death. Or just going back also for finding the mother and the eggs or the young ones, it says that, when you do that, you prolong your days. There are many things that we consider simple, but God says once you do it, you could actually become blessed and prolong your days. Continue.
Thou shalt not sow thy vineyard with two kinds of seed, lest the fullness of the seed which thou hast sown be forfeited together with the increase of the vineyard.
So once again, it says, so therefore that's why it is imperative that we check out all of the fruits that we eat and make sure that these fruits that we eat are not hybrids in terms of two or more seeds from different fruits. even though they may be in close family, are planted together in order to make something new. Because it doesn't say that when you plant the seed, it won't bring something forth. It says that the seed thereof that has sown will be forfeited. So to the dismay or to the dislike of certain people, such as the chief drummer here, who no longer eats grapefruits, when he found out that grapefruits are hybrid from 2 different seeds, and there were various plants, various fruits that exist today that were made man-made. That's the focus on man-made.
All right. You said man.
Oh, man-made. Yes.
Because I was going to say most of the like the citric fruits that we eat today are all hybrids.
Right.
But they're natural hybrids.
Right. Cross-pollination and things like that. Right.
Cross-pollination.
And grafting. So this would then include grafting. This is somebody physically taking 2 seeds to make something brand new that didn't exist in the earth today. So you gotta and you guys be careful of what type of oranges you eat as well. So an orange is not just an orange. So there are various things that you just have to be careful of eating today. So once again, if you're reading these laws and you're following Yehovah, or as you read in the English and you're following the Lord, and you want to be in the Lord's grace, you keep His commandments. So even something that you consider simple as not making a new fruit or eating a fruit that was made, you have to avoid doing. Continue.
Thou shalt not plow with the ox and the ass together.
So it may seem like something simple, but even for those that are farmers, they can't have 2 different animals plowing the ground. You just keep the oxen on one yoke and the donkeys together on one yoke. And it would be uneven, but God doesn't want any type of mixing whatsoever. So this section also, as it goes further up, is talking about mixing. It's talking about even avoiding the androgynous society that we see today, where everybody is who they are. And you have to be him/they or her/they. No, you were born a male, you die a male. You were born a female, you die a female. You're born a male, you should look like a male all your life. You were born a female, you should look like a female all of your life. So whether from the human being or to the fruits, God doesn't want any mixing. Even with the animals, because it doesn't mention the animals in this section, but this section, these few verses are repeated from Leviticus chapter 19, and it mentions that you also don't crossbreed animals as well. Continue.
Thou shalt make thee fringes upon the four
Go one
corners.
up.
10. 11.
Yeah.
Thou shalt not wear mingled stuff together, wool and linen.
So there's a word that means there's a word sha'at-nes in the Hebrew that is in this verse and also in the verse in Leviticus chapter 19. And when you look up the word sha'at-nes, what it just means mingled.
Right.
Fabrics.
Right.
So it's not. So here it's giving you an example because it says sha'at-nes and then it says wool and linen together. Sha'at-nes is not wool and linen together.
Right.
There's also a word called kil-ayim, which is talks in all of these sections to talk about something mixing together. So sha'at-nes is mingled material. So when you go shopping or when you're making garments or having your garments made, the safest thing in order to keep in line with what we read here is 100% cotton, wool, linen, silk. That's your safest. Of course, there are going to be other things, but if you do the research, then do the research. But you want to focus on the things that are 100%, and you don't want to get that 99% cotton and 2% spandex that they're making today, because that goes against what we are reading here as well. So you want to make sure that all of your garments are pure. Everything about this section here is about purity. Continue.
Thou shalt make thee tzitzit upon the four corner of thy covering wherewith thou coverest thyself.
So this is talk about the fringes, twisted cords, or the tzitzit, or it's actually the word in this verse is gedalim, which is basically tassels. Many translations put this as tassels. So you put these upon the four corners of your covering or your garment. And in Numbers chapter 15, it gives it more expansive, that you put the fringes on the corners of your garments and you put upon the fringe a cord of blue.
What?
So fringes are something that we're supposed to be wearing all the time, and we're supposed to put them on you're supposed to have a garment with 4 corners, and then you put a fringe on each corner of that garment. And once again, these are tassels, gedolim, or as it says here, twisted cords. These are not what goes where you see people put around the bottom or the hem of their garment. These are strictly tassels. When people have done excavations and archaeological digs and all types of stuff in Israel, they found tassels with quarter blues on them. That's what they found. They didn't find those things on the bottom of their garment. And if you look at other nations, Israel is not the first nation to wear fringes. So when God told us to wear fringes, because we saw those in Egypt, because if you look at Egyptian hieroglyphs, there's fringes on their garments. God tells us specifically to put a quarter blue on ours. That's what differentiates us from everybody else. But fringes are something that we're supposed to be wearing regardless of gender also. Fringes are not an article of clothing. So everybody should be wearing fringes as long as you are Yisrael. Continue.
13. If a man take a wife and go in unto her and hate her, and lay wanton charge against her, and bring up an evil name, and say, I took this woman, and when I came nigh unto her, I found not in her the tokens of virginity. Then the father of the damsel and her mother shall take and bring forth the token of the damsel's virginity unto the elders of the city in the gate. And the damsel's father shall say unto the elders, I gave my daughter to this man to wife, and he hates her. And lo, he laid wanton charges, saying, I found not in your daughter the tokens of virginity. And yet these are the tokens of my daughter's virginity. And he shall spread the garment before the elders of the city, and the elders of the city shall take the man and beat him. They shall fine him 100 shekels of silver, and give them unto the father of the damsel, because he hath brought up an evil name on a virgin of Yisrael, and she shall be his wife, and he may not put her away all his days.
So one thing that is probably not taught today too much is about the sanctity of a woman's virginity. And a man that speaks evil against a virgin of Yisrael gets beat, fined 100 shekels of silver, and is not able to put that woman away all his days, even if he finds some unseemly thing in her. That's how important virginity is, and that's something that should be taught strongly. Women should be taught to protect their virginity. Men, of course, should be taught to respect a woman's virginity. But women should also be taught to protect theirs. When people go take self-defense, is to protect themselves from danger, from things that are out there. So there are going to be men out there that are deviant, pariahs, name some words. Savages, any type of word. There's going to be men out there that are like that. But it's about women protecting themselves. So there's self-defense physically, and then there's the self-defense to protect the sanctity, because once it said that the man hates her, so this is once again a situation where man hates his wife, and he's not divorcing her, he finds some other way to get rid of her. And the way that he finds to get rid of her is to say that she wasn't a virgin when he married her. And the response to that from the parents is, here's the tokens of her virginity, the sheet where the hymen and all the blood came on, that they laid on as proof that she was a virgin when she was given away. And the parents keep that for situations such as this. So this is 100 shekels of silver is a hefty fine.
It's not cheap.
Far from cheap. If 50 shekels is the dowry of a virgin, as we'll read on later here, this is double. So he paid 50 shekels of silver for the dowry, and because he did this, now paying 100 shekels more. So he ends up paying 150 shekels overall for what he did, for lying on her virginity. So once again, young women, and as women are growing older, just think about how precious virginity is in the sight of the Most High God, that he doesn't want anybody speaking evil on a virgin of Yisrael. But if something else took place,
but if the thing be true that the tokens of virginity were not found in the damsel, then thou shalt bring out the damsel to the door of her father's house, and the men of her city shall stone her with stones that she die, because she had wrought a wanton deed in Israel to play the harlot in her father's house. So shalt thou put away the evil from the midst of thee.
So is an evil when women play the harlot in their father's house? Yes.
Okay, what about when there is no token due to the fact that her hymen was broken from his
Riding a bike.
horse?
Right.
She don't got no horse.
Yeah. Right.
No, I'm
Yeah.
being real, because it happens. You know, certain activities
Mhm.
or things, and you may even think that it's her monthly, and then
Right.
it doesn't start again for another few years. How can you protect?
So in an instant like there's probably gonna be different answers for that, but with a situation like that, all of these laws should be taught to children, male or female, from young. So if there comes a situation where her hymen breaks at some point in her life, she can let her parents know this is it, and this happened because of that. And that will protect her so that anybody else has any, they can say this happened because of this. Now it's on her to make sure that she maintains her virginity, because now she no longer has the tokens within her. Doesn't mean that she can go out there and do what she want to do and think that she can be protected. So she has to continue to protect herself. So and she can't be found doing anything else. So that would be one of the situations that in regards to that when it does happen, that she collects it and let her parents know that this is what happened. Mm-hmm.
If she was not a virgin and her father and mother gave her away, wouldn't it be obvious to them that she wasn't? If she wasn't?
No, they should know.
Right,
should know.
if she wasn't.
Right.
So that means they was in on it if she wasn't, and she was actually passed to this man as a...
If they knew,
And didn't tell him.
right, they knew that, if they knew and didn't tell him,
That's,
They
they gave their daughter up for death.
yeah. Right there, basically, because she's still gonna fall under this category.
Right.
Because if a daughter plays a harlot in her father's house, even though the parents cover it, it doesn't mean that she's still gonna play the harlot in the father's house.
Right.
So she still committed an evil deed that is supposed to be put away from Israel. So just because they try to cover it up to get her away,
Right.
to cover their shame, that shame could come right back, because they doing something shady to somebody that's being upright, ended up paying 50 shekels of silver.
So it can't happen without them knowing.
Right. And they have to make sure that if they're gonna give their daughter away, that they let the individual know these are the circumstances.
No, but they could give her away without them knowing.
No, I said without. No, I said if they knew. That's what I said. Because his question is if they knew, and they tried to cover it up.
But they didn't necessarily have to know.
No.
They could
No.
have lied. They could have lied. She could have lied to her parents.
Right. That's how they wouldn't know, because she lied. That's where this situation comes up, where they didn't know. But if they did know, and it became an in-house thing, and they just wanted to cover shame,
They daughter to
right? Then they messed up. Yeah. Mhm.
Define in her father's house.
So in her father's house means in her father's household, not necessarily in the physical building of the father, but being in the household of the father until she gets married, because when she gets married, then she becomes someone else's household.
I say that because you have a lot of women who move out of their parents' home,
Mhm.
and then they just in the world.
Right. Now, because you're still in your father's, if the scenario is being given is that if a woman moves out of the house, the physical house, and is living out there in the world, which becomes a problem, of course, living today in the countries that some of the countries that we're living in, that these types of things happen, but she would still be in her father's house.
Right.
And that would cover even this scenario.
Right.
That, say it again? Household, yeah.
It means unmarried.
So it cover unmarried. She's in that father's household in this scenario. That's what covers. So this will cover a lot of things. Once again, and also going back up, because just to mention some of the things, that the judges would be the ones that protect the women in the previous scenario, because as we continue on, we should see that judges have more power than we give them, because they are responsible for making sure that the man does not put her away all his days. So judges are very hands-on in terms of marriages, and marriages are not as simple as relationships as we consider them today. Judges are hands-on, and we're going to see certain other things, but they have to be the ones that enforce these things when they occur. Continue.
If a man be found lying with a married woman to her husband, then they both shall die, the man and the woman that lay with her. So shalt thou put away the evil from Yisrael.
And that's the definition of adultery: a man laying with a married woman, and the married woman is not his wife. both of them shall die because he laid with another man's wife. Continue.
If there be a damsel that is a virgin betrothed to a man, and a man find her in the city and lie with her, then he shall bring them both out unto the gate of the city, and he shall stone them with stones that they die. The damsel because she cried not, being in the city, and the man because he hath humbled his neighbor's wife. So shalt thou put away the evil from the midst of thee.
So betrothed is engaged, so you find a woman. A lot of this translation, of course, is Old English. So you see damsel with a woman that is a virgin, betrothed or engaged to a man, and she ends up laying with somebody else. That is also considered adultery, even though she didn't lay with the person that she was engaged to. It considers her that individual's wife. So she's not allowed to lay with anybody else. And that's how you put away evil from the midst of you. Continue.
But if the man find the damsel that is betrothed in the field, and the man take hold of her and lie with her, then the man only that lie with her shall die. But unto the damsel thou shalt do nothing. There is no sin worthy of death. For as much as when a man rises against his neighbor and slay him, even so is this matter. For he found her in the field, the betrothed damsel cried, and there was none to save
So
her.
in the case of rape, which is this just an expanded explanation of that she's raped, that there's no blood guiltiness on her head, is only on the person that raped her. And it says just as a man rises up against another person to murder him or slay him, so is this matter. So the punishment for rape is death.
Right.
Just like the punishment for murder is death. So she's engaged to somebody else, but somebody else rapes her, you put him to death and not her. Continue.
If a man find a damsel that is a virgin that is not betrothed, and lay hold on her and lie with her, and they be found, then the man that lay with her shall give unto the damsel's father 50 shekels of silver, and she shall be his wife, because he hath humbled her. He may not put her away all his days.
So it mentions, just like in Exodus chapter 22, that if a man seduces or entices a virgin to lie with her, and they be found out, just putting the two together here, they found out that he would pay, as it says in Exodus 22, the dowry of a virgin, or as it says here, 50 shekels of silver, which is going to be that price, and that she becomes that man's wife, and he cannot divorce her all of the days of his life. So once again, judges have to make sure that that takes place. And if the father refuses, as it said in Exodus 22, the father could have the right at that point to refuse to give his daughter to that man, that the man still has to pay this price anyway.
Some books, some newer translations, that word right there, when it speaks of it, it says that if a man rapes a woman. Some newer translations, I've seen it.
For this particular
For
section,
that
yeah.
particular scenario. Is there a difference in the Hebrew between when it speaks about that
And the previous scenario, yes.
and a rape?
Yes. In the previous scenario, it talks about using the word kazak, or a variation of that word, to overtake or to stronghold her. And this one, it doesn't use that word at all. So this one is, once again, is comparable to what we read in Exodus 22, where the man entices the virgin. So this is not a case of rape. And that becomes the problem of newer translations. And that also becomes the problem of digital translations, because you may find out that words that are not supposed to be there end up being there. So that's why printed books will always, or should always, be in style. Continue.
Chapter 23. Man shall not take his father's wife, and shall not uncover his father's skirt.
So from here, for some books like King James translation and Gideon, this 23 verse 1 is actually the end of chapter 22. So the verse is actually in 23, maybe off read here for those that are reading other translations out there. Yeah.
Refill. He that is crushed or maimed in his private part shall not enter into the assembly of Yahuwah.
So anybody that's castrated should not be in the assembly of Yehovah. So there would be no eunuchs, and anybody maimed that has their private parts cut off should enter into the assembly of Yehovah. Next.
A bastard shall not enter into the assembly of Yahuwah, even unto the 10th generation. None of his shall enter into the assembly of Yah.
So once again, and as is taught here in this congregation, that the word for, or the meaning for the word bastard would be a child that is born from any illegal sexual activity. Once again, that's the teaching from here. child born from any illegal sexual activity like incest, adultery, any things like that. But there are other interpretations. I'm just saying for this verse, that's how this congregation teaches that.
Is that the reason why Bathsheba loved the first child with David?
It's not an impossible reason. The question was, is that the reason why Bathsheba might have lost the first child she had with David? That was David's punishment as well for the things that he did. But to say that that would be the exact reason, I won't say yes or no. But once again, just giving the definition of the meaning based on here. Consequently, for the Septuagint, which is the earliest translation of the Hebrew into Greek, the word that they translated the word, and the word in Hebrew is mamzer. The word that they translate that into is harlot. That's how it was translated into Septuagint for this verse right here. But just a harlot. So that's the definition that was given there at that time. But once again, we also given the definition that we give here in this congregation, and then of course other congregations have different interpretations as well. Continue.
An Ammonite or a Moabite shall not enter into the assembly of Yahweh even to the 10th generation. Shall none of them enter into the assembly of Yah forever, because they met you not with bread and with water in the way when ye came forth out of Egypt, and because they hired against you Bil'am the son of Beor from Pethor Aram Naharaim to curse you. Nevertheless, Yahweh thy God would not hearken unto Bil'am, but Yahweh thy God turned the curse into a blessing unto thee, because Yahweh thy God loved thee. Thou shalt not seek their peace, nor their prosperity all the day forever.
So once again, the Ammonites and Moabites, God saying that they should not be allowed into the congregation or into the assembly of Yahweh forever, even to the 10th generation, and he gives the reason why. Because as we read throughout the book of Numbers, when we left out of Egypt and we tried to go straight up northward, to then go westward to cross the Jordan to go into the land, it was easier to pass through the Edomite territory. They didn't let us go. But we'll see why we are allowed to allow them in the congregation as opposed to the Moabites. Then the Moabites we tried to get through, they didn't let us through as well. So we had to go further north in order to go westward. So God said that we should not seek their peace or their prosperity all of our days forever, because they did not seek our peace or prosperity when we needed it. We wouldn't know today. We wouldn't know how they look. Nations didn't have a look. Nationality was just nationality. So when you think about what was happening in what we know as biblical times, there were 99% people of color. Just to use the word 99%, because just in case there was a 1% somewhere in there. 99% of the people were people of color, different shades of color, but they were just what we would know today as black people. So there's not a look that goes with any nation back then, just like we wouldn't know how they look today. So today, the best thing that we can do is stick to our own.
So what do you know? What is all this time one is sitting among us?
Uh-oh.
That's why the best thing to do is stick to your own. We wouldn't. There's things that there are nothing. There are people that would be amongst that we wouldn't know who they are. But that's why when we go through the whole scripture, and specifically next week when we get into the Deuteronomy chapter 28, those are the type of things that help us hone in on who the children of Yisrael are. And that's where lineage and that's why we read through Ezra and Nehemiah. We did those sections. Genealogy was very important. It seemed like a tedious thing to read, and it was probably a more tedious thing to write down, but it was very important, because if you didn't have certain records, they did not consider you Yisrael, because because you were around, there's no record of your lineage, and they didn't allow you to do certain things. Today, we don't hold records like that. People join the congregation. We don't know who they are, where they live. They come, they go. We really don't write stuff down. We should write things down. We should write down who's members and who they're married to and who their children are. We should have records of everything. They were keeping records. They left the land, went into Babylon and ended Persia, they were still keeping records of genealogy.
That's why
that was very,
when we do the public naming, we give a certificate. We keep a copy of the certificate.
So Chief was mentioning the certificate that goes along with having a public naming. But records should be kept in terms of this is that person, they married to this person, they had this child. But once we live however we want to live, it's hard, even with public naming, because they'll just, you'll publicly name the child, but the parents are still, yeah. But continue.
Verse 8. Thou shalt not abhor an Edomite, for he is thy brother. Thou shalt not abhor an Egyptian, because thou was a stranger in his land. The children of the third generation that are born unto them may enter into the assembly of Yahweh.
So mention the Edomites because they are our brother. Esau is who the Edomite nature comes from. Esau and Jacob were brothers. So God said, regardless of what transpired between the two, we can't hate them. The Egyptians, even regardless of the things that they did to us, we were strangers in their land. They took us, and that's how we started off in Egypt because we needed food. They protected us. So God rewards people for the good that they do, even when they turn around and do bad. Continue.
When thou goest forth in the camp against thine enemies, and thou shalt keep thee from every evil thing. If there be among you a man that is not clean by reason of that which chances him by night, then shall he go abroad out of the camp. He shall not come within the camp. But it shall be when the evening cometh on, he shall bathe himself in water, and when the sun goes down, he may come into the camp.
So, as we know here, and you read in Leviticus chapter 15, when the flow of seed comes out of a man, he's unclean until the evening. But how he becomes unclean until the evening is by he takes a bath before the sun goes down. And once you read that, and also in Leviticus chapter 22, when it talks about the priests and what they're allowed to eat and how they have to be clean to eat holy things, it mentions the same thing, that they are clean until the sun goes down. So sun going down and evening are equated.
Right.
So just to put that out there. I mean, I know we have differences of opinions on various things, but the sun going down and the evening are equal. And you have, it says here, before the evening comes on, he takes a bath. Yeah. He bathes in flesh and water, and he's clean when the sun goes down. As mentioned in Leviticus chapter 15, and the man, the flow of seed comes out of him, and he's with a woman. Both he and her are unclean, and they both have to bathe their flesh in water and be unclean until the evening. Bathing your flesh in water means bathing your flesh in water.
Head to toe.
Head to everything. You're not going to become clean by taking a shower and no water got on the top of your head.
Pretty locks, everything.
Everything has to be washed.
Even your straightened hair.
You can't wash the wave.
Even the $550 22-inch Brazilian.
Nah, come on, Rabbi.
Continue.
Thou shalt have a place also without the camp, whither thou shalt go forth abroad. And thou shalt have a paddle among thy weapons. And it shall be when thou sittest down abroad that thou shalt dig therewith, and shalt turn back and cover that which cometh from thee. For Yahweh thy God walks in the midst of thy camp to deliver thee, and to give up thine enemies before thee. Therefore shall thy camp be holy, that he see no unseemly thing in thee, and turn away from thee.
So that term unseemly thing we're going to see as soon as we get into the beginning of the next chapter. Irwat Devar. So God doesn't want to see any unseemly thing even amongst a warrior camp. People that are going forth and killing people, God says you still have to keep your camp pure. So if a flow of seed comes out of a man by night, that he's not going out in the battlefield during the day. Even though those people that are going out during the day are going to be killing other people and they're going to be coming clean by the dead, God said you keep yourself away from every evil thing. So we don't have what we see today where soldiers go through and pillage villages, rape women, and do all of those type of things. Even when you see a woman, as I said at the beginning of this portion, is after you see her amongst the captives. You're not allowed to fulfill your desires, even as a soldier, amongst a woman in war. God wants the camp to be pure. He's amongst us. It's just given,
Like in the garden.
figure of speech. God is just among us. So so this is the warrior, or this is the army setting, for lack of a better term, army setting. But whenever we have a gathering of holiness where we want Jehovah God to walk among us, people should be clean. That's right. So when we have gatherings like this, people should be clean. So before coming out to worship, make sure that you're clean. So you have to wash yourself before sundown. So when the sun goes down Friday evening, you're clean for the Sabbath day.
Why do you think you use that word, walk? Why do you think you use that word?
Figure of speech. Yeah, it's figure of speech. There are many things that, because God is not human, he doesn't have human body parts, but in order for him to relate to us, he'll explain things to us in a manner that we can understand better. So when he's saying that he's walking among us, meaning that he's there with us. Yeah. He's in the midst of us. So we have to, and even when it's mentioned with the army, even when you have to excuse yourself, we have bathrooms today, but it mentions you have a pattern amongst your weapons, so you go outside the camp, dig a hole, crouch down, do what you got to do, wipe your hands and yourself with some leaves that are nearby, because we talk about biblical times. Cover it with some dirt, come back in the camp, wash your hands. Today, you go to the bathroom, you sit down, flush the toilet, the sink should be within 2 feet, use that, wash your hands with soap, and dry your hands and everything, because all of that waste will go through the sewer system and go out of the camp. You have Pampers, soil Pampers, get them out of the house as fast as possible. Because as it says, Jehovah walks amongst us. We don't need those type of things amongst us. When you're using the bathroom, wipe yourself very good.
Right.
Don't keep that stuff between,
Right.
because Jehovah God walks amongst us. Continue.
Thou shalt not deliver unto his master a slave that is escaped from his master unto you. He shall dwell with you in the midst of you, in the place where he shall choose within one of your gates, where it liketh him best. Thou shalt not wrong him.
So a servant that runs away because he's being mistreated by his master, and before getting to the point where he gets his tooth and eye knocked out, he runs away.
Is that an Israelite or one of the captives?
That's
either.
servant period, yeah. Servant period. That you don't mistreat them, you find a place for them. But as judges will come in, of course, and see what took place, to judge what happened, to make sure that the servant has a reason to flee. Continue.
There shall be no harlot of the daughters of Israel, neither shall there be a sodomite of the sons of Israel. Thou shalt not bring the hire of a whore or the price of a dog into the house of Jehovah thy God for any vow. Even both of these is an abomination unto Jehovah thy God.
So it was mentioned, even Chief Uziel mentioned it last week, and with study, you can look up temple prostitution or sacred prostitution. Do you have the word Quadesh and Quadesha, which they translated here as harlot and sodomite,
Right.
but it's actually a male temple prostitute and do the verse, save a verse, just for the sake of the verse, a female temple prostitute and a male temple prostitute. And it says that even the higher of them, as it said in the following verse, that you don't bring into the house of Jehovah, because that's what the ancient nations that worship their false gods used to do. They used to prostitute female and men. So that's how the term became sodomite, because those male temple prostitutes were sleeping with men that would come in to support the temple. So but it's literally female temple prostitute, male temple prostitute. And when it comes to the price of the dog, that's just because the word, they use the word, the word is Caleb in Hebrew, but that's why pronunciation of words is very important.
Talk about it.
Because they would translate that word as dog here because it has the same 3 characters as dog everywhere else in Scripture. But you also have the word Quadesh. When you pronounce it as Quadesh, it means male temple prostitute. When you say the word Quadosh, then it means holy. So just because it had the same 3 characters in Hebrew doesn't mean it's the same thing when you pronounce it differently. So literally, those 2 verses go together. And it says that these are an abomination unto Jehovah, your God. The male prostitute and the female prostitute are an abomination unto Jehovah God. So you have to make sure that you're not living a lifestyle that is abominable in the sight of Jehovah. Continue.
Thou shalt not lend money upon interest to thy brother, interest of money or interest of victuals, interest of anything that is lent upon interest. Unto a foreigner thou mayest lend upon interest, but unto thy brother thou shalt not lend upon interest, that Jehovah thy God may bless thee in all that thou puttest thy hand unto, in the land whither thou goest in to possess it.
You lend somebody $100, they pay you back $100. They don't pay you back $100.25 because they took a month to pay you late, and then $100.50 because it's 2 months late, and then $200.73 because they were a year and a half late. God says you don't charge interest to your people.
That's right.
So whatever you lend them, and whether it's money or it could be stuff, you let them borrow 2 cows, they're giving you back 2 cows.
Ah, man.
Because that's what, that's the whole barter system. Because we don't everybody doesn't have silver shekels, but they talk about interest of anything. And when you read that at Exodus in the portion Mishpatim, it's also said the same interest of anything. Whatever you lend them, that's what they give you back. But they are required to give you back. But the interest is not a way that you cause people to get your stuff back. They're supposed to give you back anyway. Continue.
When thou shalt vow a vow unto Jehovah thy God, thou shalt not be slack to pay it. For Jehovah thy God will surely require it of thee, and it will be sin in thee. But if thou shalt forbear to vow, it shall be no sin in thee.
There you go.
That which is gone out of thy lips, thou shalt observe to do, according as thou hast vowed freely unto Jehovah thy God, even that which thou hast promised with thy mouth.
So whatever you say out of your mouth, you have to make sure you do it. If you make a vow to Jehovah God, and these vows are actually offerings, that you make sure that you do what you said before God that you're going to do. But you don't have to vow. The offerings that are required are the ones that are specified all throughout Holy Scriptures, but people have the opportunity to vow certain offerings, but you don't have to do that. You read that also in Ecclesiastes chapter 5. It's the same thing. Make sure you pay your vows back to God, but he says that if you don't vow, it's not a problem. But when you vow and don't pay, it says God will destroy, paraphrasing, God will destroy the works of your hands. So whatever you say, you have to make sure that you do it.
Has been promised to me to more time.
Nope.
When you promise,
If there's anything,
whatever comes out of your mouth, you make a promise to somebody else. Make sure that you pay that back. But the vow offerings are specific that you're only going to give an offering before God. But God is saying, and he goes back to Numbers chapter 30. Numbers chapter 30. Whatever somebody says, they have to make sure that they do it. Every male has to do whatever they say out of their mouth. Now, for the women, the father could absolve certain vows and things like that, but it's whatever comes out of your mouth. You have to make sure that you do it. Continue.
25. When you come into your neighbor's vineyard, then you may eat grapes until you have enough at your own pleasure, but you shall not put any in a vessel. When thou comest into thy neighbor's standing corn, then thou mayest pluck ears with thy hand, but thou shalt not move a sickle unto thy neighbor's standing corn.
So there's a responsibility on both sides. In Leviticus chapter 19, God says that you don't glean your entire vineyard, your entire crops. You leave some on the side for people that are poor to pass by and take some. Now, the people that are passing by and taking some, they can eat right there, but they're not taking stuff in their bag to go home. Because they're taking what somebody's leaving for the poor, but there are other poor people. So don't glean the things that the people left out there, because other people are poor as well, and they need to get some also. Continue.
Chapter 24. When a man takes a wife and marries her, and it comes to pass that she find no favor in his eyes because he hath found some unseemly thing in her, and he writes her a bill of divorcement and gives it in her hand and sends her out of his house, and she departs out of his house and goes and become another man's wife, and the latter husband hate her and writes her a bill of divorce and gives it into her hand and sends her out of his house, or if the latter husband die, who took her to be his wife, the former husband who sent her away may not take her again to be his wife. After that she is defiled, for that is an abomination before Jehovah. Thou shalt not cause the land to sin, which Jehovah thy God gives thee for an inheritance.
So it's the responsibility of the individuals to make sure that they do not cause the land to sin and that they don't do anything abominable. So the entire law in its entirety is talking about when a man has a wife, it just says he divorces her, he writes a bill of divorce, and she becomes somebody else's, that whatever transpires with the latter husband, she cannot go back, the former husband cannot take back his wife after she has been with somebody else. So it mentions here as well as, so this is also where we get the rules of, or the framework of divorce as well, where it says that a man finds some unseemly thing in her, as the same term as is used with the excrement when it comes to the camp, that he finds something unseemly in her, and that he writes her a bill of divorce and puts it in her hand, and that's how she becomes that's how she's eligible to be somebody else's wife. Once he writes her the bill of divorce, puts it in her hand. And it says the same thing for the next person, that the latter husband writes, if he finds the unseemly thing in her, he writes her a bill of divorce, puts it in her hand, and sends her out of the house. So that's where the term house comes in, because it becomes household. She's now cut off from that household. So once again, once we think of marriages the way that we should think of marriages, we think about how serious they are. We read where God said he hates putting away because it is a serious thing for divorce. It's not, once again, marriage is not something that you easily get into and out of. But once again, the rules of divorce is that the man writes her the bill of divorce, puts it in her hand, and sends her out of the house. Even on an allegorical level in Isaiah chapter 50, God asks Yisrael, where is the bill of your mother's divorcement? You need proof before you become somebody else's husband. And that proof is the bill of divorce that is written out and put within her hand. Today, the husband writes her the bill of divorce, puts it in her hand, and she becomes somebody else's wife. So that becomes your proof. The document becomes the proof.
Right.
Not a text message or email.
That's funny.
You need some sort of physical document. And he can't, after she is with somebody else, he cannot go back. Continue.
When a man takes a new wife, he shall not go out into the host, neither shall he be charged with any business. He shall be free for his house for 1 year, and shall cheer his wife whom he hath taken.
Simply said, when he gets a new wife,
leave him alone.
Leave him alone. Let him spend time with his wife for a year. This is for national business, army, things like that. If he has to do personal work because the household has to make progress, that's within the household. But nobody externally is supposed to be putting anything upon him in order for him to cheer his wife for a year.
What if he plays for the national team and the World Cup year is that year?
Oh, man.
Then you retire. Serena Williams retired so she could have another child. I mean, so.
Yeah, Serena Williams also played a tournament pregnant.
Yeah, but she don't want to do that again.
Well, I'm just saying.
Mom's here.
We only got 10 minutes left. We can't talk about that. Continue.
No man shall take the mill or the upper millstone to pledge, for he takes a man's life to pledge.
So a pledge is something that somebody gives you as a promissory, in terms of if they owe you something, you lend them something, they give you something to say that, I owe you. But you don't take something that somebody can utilize to eat with, make money with, or sustain themselves with as a pledge, because it'll be more difficult for them to pay you back.
Right.
So it mentions garments. As we continue reading here, you could take a garment, you give that back before the sun goes down. But that's what a pledge is. A pledge is something somebody gives when you lend them money or anything. Continue.
If a man be found stealing any of his brethren, the children of Israel, and he deal with him like a slave and sell him, then that thief shall die. So shall you put away the evil from the midst of thee.
So therefore, that's simply kidnapping, human trafficking, as they would call it today, that when you find them, you put them to death. Today there's jails and things like that, but what happened is that person is supposed to be put to death. Continue.
Take heed in the plague of leprosy, that thou observe diligently and do according to all that the Kohanim, the sons of Levi, teach you. As I command them, so shall ye observe to do. Remember what Yehovah thy God did to Miriam, by the way, as she came forth out of Egypt.
And Leviticus chapters 13 and 14 tell us exactly what happens in the plague of leprosy. The priests see it. They determine what it is, whether it's leprosy or not. When the person is deemed to have leprosy, they're unclean all of the days that they have leprosy. When they no longer have that mark upon them, they go to the priest again. The priest sees it, gives them a period of time, and then there's a way that they get back into the community. So God is saying here that we have to be aware in the plague of leprosy that we don't contaminate the camp. Continue.
When you lend your neighbor any manner of loan, you shall not go into his house to fetch it. Thou shalt stand without, and the man to whom thou lend shall bring forth the pledge without unto thee. And if he be a poor man, thou shalt not sleep with his pledge. Thou shalt surely restore to him the pledge when the sun goes down, that he may sleep in his garment and bless you. And it shall be righteousness unto you before Yehovah your God.
So once again, the pledge is something somebody gives you to show that they owe you money or anything, but you don't go into the person's house to get that pledge. You have respect at least for the house, for the person's house. You let them bring it out to you, and if it's a garment, you give it back to them before the sun goes down, because people sleep in their garments or their covering at night when it gets cooler. Continue.
Thou shalt not oppress a hired servant that is poor and needy, whether he be of thy brethren or of the strangers that are in thy land within thy gates. In the same day thou shalt give him his hire, neither shall the sun go down upon it, for he is poor, and he sets his heart upon it, lest he cry against thee unto Yahweh, and it be sin in thee.
So when somebody works for you, you pay them that same day that they work for you.
Not a
Today what happens is, we have contracts where we get paid every once a week or sometimes by or every other week. That's the contract you sign. But God is saying that somebody's poor, they work for you, their mind is set on getting paid that day for that work that they do. It's what we would call today day laborers. You pay them for the day's work. So they can have the money to do what they got to do, then they may come back the next day, and they feel good about coming back the next day because you paid them that day. Continue.
The father shall not be put to death for the child, neither shall the child be put to death for the father. Every man shall be put to death for his own
As we
sin.
read about all the judgments all throughout the portion, that children are not responsible for what their fathers do, and fathers are not responsible for what their children do. Once again, everybody's put to death for their own sin. Ezekiel chapter 18 gives this even clearer. So nobody can die for your sin. Plain and simple. Whatever sin you commit is on you. Nobody else dies for your sin, no matter what anybody in the world tries to tell you. God says it straightly here, and in Ezekiel chapter 18, everybody dies, or everybody's put to death for their own sin. Continue.
Thou shalt not pervert the justice due to a stranger or the fatherless, nor take a widow's raiment to pledge. But thou shalt,
Once again, here, it's all talking about, because the next verse goes with this. Go ahead.
but thou shalt remember that thou wast a bondman in Egypt, and Yahweh thy God redeemed thee thence. Therefore I command thee to do this thing.
So a widow's raiment or her garment, if she owes you something, you don't take her garment as the pledge.
Right.
Take something else, so that or nothing, but she knows that she has to pay you back. But once again, it says don't pervert the justice that is due to the strangers or the fathers, and it says don't take a widow's raiment to pledge. Everybody gets treated fairly, and it's equal rights and justice for everybody. Continue.
When thou reapest thy harvest in thy field, and hast forgotten the sheep in the field, thou shalt not go back to fetch it. It shall be for the stranger, and for the fatherless, and for the widow, that Yahweh thy God may bless thee in all the works of thy hands. And when thou beatest thy olive tree, thou shalt not go over the boughs again. It shall be for the stranger, for the fatherless, and for the widow. When thou gatherest the grape of thy vineyard, thou shalt not glean after thee. It shall be for the stranger, for the fatherless, and for the widow. Thou shalt remember that thou was a bondman in the land of Egypt. Therefore I command thee, do this thing.
So it's talking about the grain in your field, that you don't go back, you leave it for those that could pass by, take some. Same thing with the olive trees, how you beat it. People take sticks and they just beat the boughs of the olive tree, and that's what the olive drop down. You just agreeing, or you was? Oh. And they catch it with a basket or some sort of cloth or something. So that's why they're using these terminologies. Today, people have machinery to do that, but it's talking about it in ways people used to get the things. And then same thing with the vineyard. You leave something back, you leave some grapes back so that people are passing by, they can take some, fill their belly, and move on. But their responsibility is not to take it and gather it in a basket and take it home. Chapter 25. See how Lael does this in the next 3 minutes.
If there be a controversy between men, and they come unto judgment, and the judges judge them by justifying the righteous and condemning the wicked, then it shall be, if the wicked man deserve to be beaten, then the judge shall cause him to lie down, and to be beaten before his face, according to the measure of his wickedness by number. 40 stripes he may give him, he shall not exceed. Lest if he exceed, and beat him above these with many stripes, then thy brother shall be dishonored before thine eyes.
So another form of punishment is beating. We could get back to that today. So it's not just children, don't worry, it's not children that get beat alone. Adults get beat when they do wrong also, or should get beat when they do wrong also. Judges are just not allowed to exceed 40 stripes when they beat somebody, but people, there are a lot of people that need to be beat. And this is male and female, you beat people, so.
Objects.
To try to figure that out would probably go to, no, I wouldn't say, no, definitely, it wouldn't be a whip, but some sort of stick they would probably use. No, not something that's gonna leave marks and things like that, because you don't want them to be dishonored, as it says here. So it would be some sort of object that just inflicts some sort of pain. And we can look up corporal punishment It is actually legal in many states in the United States. So we don't need to say that there are things that we cannot do here. We can do corporal punishment if we wanted to. It's legal.
Let's get it.
Continue.
Thou shalt
There are,
not-
wait, that goes for adults, but there's definitely schools that beat children today. It's legal in 19 states for public schools, and it's legal in 49 states in private schools to beat children, and it's legal in 19 states to beat children in public schools.
And in all the Caribbean countries.
And beating your child would probably do them a lot of good and help them to become a better person. You see what happens today when we have children that are not beat, that they go out there and beat other people and end up killing other people, or get beat or killed by somebody else, like police, things like that. So instituting punishment, young and old, is legal. Continue.
Thou shalt not muzzle the ox when he treadeth out the corn.
So when the ox is going through your field, don't muzzle it, put something over his mouth that it can't eat, and it nourish itself to get strength while it's working. Continue.
If brethren dwell together and one of them die and have no child, the wife of the dead shall not be married abroad unto one that is not of kin. Her husband's brother shall go in unto her, and take her to him to wife, and perform the duty of a husband's brother unto her. And it shall be that the firstborn that she shall bear shall succeed in the name of his brother that is dead, that his name be not blotted out of Yisrael. And if a man like not to take his brother's wife, then his brother's wife shall go up to the gate of the elders and say, my husband's brother refused to raise up name for his brother in Israel. He will not perform the duty of a husband's brother unto me. Then the elders of the city shall call him and speak unto him, saying, and if he stand and say, I like not to take her, then his brother's wife shall draw nigh unto him in the presence of the elders, and loose his shoe from his foot, and spit in his face. And shall answer and say, so shall it be done unto the man that does not build up his brother's house. And his name shall be called in Israel the house of him that had his shoes.
So building up the house in Yisrael is something that is very important. We read about virginity being important as well. And when a man doesn't want to build up his brother's household, he ends up getting spit in his face, and he ends up getting his shoe loose and be called shoe loose for the rest of his life. But the responsibility, if a man dies without having any children, that, as it says here, his brother would take his wife. And she's not allowed to go abroad. Once again, we see a lot of things with judgment here, or what judges can do, that are very important in terms of what marriages take place and should not take place, so to speak. So that's one of the, you said teach?
No, I got a question.
Yeah.
So if brother died and this woman is way above the age where she can bear children.
Mm-hmm. If she cannot have children, then there's nothing he can.
Well, we don't know if she can. She just
No, if she knows, or as Lyle said, if you find out that she's not able to have children, and yes, then he would probably be absolved from this duty. But his responsibility is, if she is able to, that he's supposed to marry her. She doesn't become. That's how that's how Onan got in trouble.
Right.
By making Tamar his plaything and wasting the seed. Right. So that's why he got put to death, because he still went into her with everybody thinking that he's going to marry her and raise up seed, and he spilt his seed. That's how he ended up being put to death as a regards to that, yes.
What if that brother is not in his way of life?
So if this brother is not in the way of life, that's what complicates things, because you probably can't force somebody that is not in this way of life to. Well, maybe he won't mind, but it depends on the brother. But things become difficult when things become difficult dealing with people that are not in this way of life.
But that law is speaking in terms of us living in a society
that is able to do that.
We're all doing and living the same
Right.
way.
Okay, fully capable of doing that. Because it says if brothers it starts by saying brothers dwell together. Right. But it would be meritorious if the brother would be able to do that as well. But it would have to be explained to the brother. But chances are you probably won't be able. Chances are, as we just said, you may not be able to get that to happen, and that would absolve the person of getting spit in their face as well. 3 more sections to go, and we're going.
You want to get spit on his face.
When men strive together one with another, and the wife of one draws near to deliver her husband out of the hand of him that smites him, and put forth her hand and grab him by the secrets, thou shalt cut off her hand, your eye shall have no pity.
So she had to find another way of delivering her husband from the fight. That also teaches us that we shouldn't be fighting anyway, because you might end up getting your wife's hand cut off, because she's coming there trying to save you out of your fight that you probably got yourself into. She ends up, that is what is rules, but he said just don't lose. And he grabs by the secrets. Once again, we skipped over a lot of things, but this word here, mevushim, yeah, I believe that's the word. Yeah. Beam vushai, mevushim, only appears in this verse. Nowhere else in the scriptures, but it's translated as secrets. There are a few words, once again, that only appear here, and we are at the whim of the translators. And that's why it's important for us to know the history of certain things in order to get an understanding, because we can't just go by the whims of the translators to tell us what certain words mean. And that's why we have external sources to teach us. Continue.
Thou shalt not have in thy bag diverse weights, a great and a small, and thou shalt not have in thy house diverse measures, a great and a small, a perfect weight and a perfect and a just weight shalt thou have. A perfect and a just measure shalt thou have, that thy days may be long upon the land which Jehovah thy God giveth thee. For all that doeth such things, even all that do unrighteously, are an abomination unto Jehovah thy God.
And abomination is something that, once again, is hateful. We see the word abomination appear a few times in this section, with the cross-dressing here, just something that people think is simple, having unbalanced weights. So if you're a merchant and you're selling things, you have to sell things by the weight that you say you're selling it for. You can't sell it one price to somebody else, and somebody comes after and you sell it for a different price, whether it's lower or higher. Everybody has to be treated equitably if you're going to be a merchant. And if you do something inequitable, then you become an abomination unto Jehovah your God, because you did something like that. So all your scales have to be balanced. Continue.
Remember what Amalek did unto thee by the way as you came forth out of Egypt, how he met you by the way and smote the hindermost of you, all that were enfeebled in the rear, when thou wert faint and weary, and he feared not God. Therefore it shall be, when Jehovah thy God shall give you rest from all your enemies round about in the land which Jehovah thy God giveth thee for an inheritance, to possess it, that thou shalt blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven, thou shalt not forget.
So God doesn't forget what people do to us. We shouldn't forget what people did to us. We read that in Exodus chapter 15, what Amalek did to us. And God said he would have with Amalek from generation after generation. When the time of King Saul, King Shaul, he was supposed to exterminate the Amalekites. He didn't do so. And it cost him the kingship as a result of that. So we thank Jehovah God for all that he does for us. Oh.
Going back to the merchants.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is this just merchants, people selling things, or let's say you provide a service like what I do?
Mm-hmm. You're a merchant. A merchant, anybody that's selling something.
Right. So I can't charge an Israelite a lower price.
Because now that we're done, I'll give you my opinion. You should not. You should be fair.
So everybody got to get the same price.
You should. There shouldn't be a quote unquote Israelite price.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
You have the Most High tell us not to lend with usury.
Mm-hmm.
But he said with the stranger you could do
Right.
it.
There you go.
They said don't sell your brother meat or something that died for himself.
Mm-hmm.
But you could do that with the stranger. So there is a difference between you can have an Israelite price and you can have a price for a stranger.
Those were specific instances that were mentioned that you can do it for somebody else.
But the Torah teaches Torah.
But if Torah teaches Torah, then there's going to be other things. Because you got the law for the homeborn as well as the stranger.
Can I share?
That's why there's specific things that go to, yeah.
Shabbat Shalom. They're talking about weights and measures.
Right.
So if I'm selling cheese to you for 99 cents a pound, I can't put my thumb on it.
Right.
I could sell you cheese for $2 a pound, but I'm still not putting my thumb on it. The cheese for you is $2 because I don't like people with white turbans. The cheese for him is $1 because I like Levites with black hats. I'm letting you know what I'm working with. There's nothing underhanded, and you can take your business elsewhere. But I'm not cheating you. This is what I'm offering you for this price. Take it or leave it.
In that case,
That's just.
no, what he's saying is something different.
Yeah, that's just. We're talking about weights
What
and
he's saying is
measures.
what he's saying is
We're
something
not talking
different.
about. We're not talking about goods and services.
Yes. No, it still will go for goods and services because you're telling people this is the price for
Mexicans.
this. No, we're not from Mexico.
Question.
But that's how we get into complications because your scales are supposed to be. That's the Lord. Like that's why you're trying to get over it, and He did a very good job of doing so actually. But the scales are supposed to be the same for everybody.
Right.
So 2 pounds is 2 pounds.
Right.
No matter what it is.
Right.
So what La'el is saying is that he's letting the person know up front when they come in, I'm charging you $2 a pound. And then when somebody else comes in, I still wouldn't agree with that, but I understand the technicalities. That's why I say I understand the technicality that you're using to get around it. But they said you had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. I want to ask a question from I was a little girl, and I've always been embarrassed. You know, everybody think I have no person to be embarrassed. But I used to see a funny thing. I became an Israelite, and I just want to ask this question. Did you ever see anybody purging a chicken?
Purging?
Purge a chicken.
Purge a chicken? Meaning?
I seen that. My family around Thursday time here. They get the chicken, they had a big kitchen in the back of the rooms. And I can't remember that, but I know Synthetica was one thing, but was other little things they put in the water. They tied newspaper in the kitchen.
Oh, to put the whole chicken inside the boiling water.
Tie the chicken
Right.
and give the water. They put whatever they mix and they put that in the water and they gave the chicken.
No. Yeah, I've never seen that.
They purged it. I think some
They
people.
never.
Yeah, you mean the boiler? Yeah, boiler and put the.
No, she did say boil.
No,
Like on Thursday. Thursday,
they
they'll
clean
take the
the
chicken.
water, whatever they do, I don't know. They never cook meat. They never cook pork. A lot of things. So when I went to live with my mom, I lived over 15 years, and I first started eating pork and all that stuff, things that I didn't eat when I was raised with those people. So what I'm asking, I don't see nobody do that.
Oh.
They purge the chicken because you try to get like if people that catch pigeons out there, right? They'll grab the pigeon, they won't kill it. They'll feed the pigeon like corn or grain or whatever for a week. And then you purge the bird, like to get the waste out of it.
Right.
And then before you cook it. So if they purging it from Thursday, by Sunday, when they go and
To clean the inside. Oh, that's how. When you said purge the chicken, I'm thinking put in the right. 'Cause I'm thinking purge like no, clean out the chicken, right? Clean out the chicken. So I understand that. No, I mean that would make sense for those that do it to get the, I guess, waste and a thing, right? So that the chicken would be clean when you clean. Now I understand it. So,
they put it on the string so it don't have access to
right.
go and eat worms and do all types of stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then it cleans out, and then by the time Sunday morning comes,
It's ready. Now people do that with animals. Yeah, overall. I mean, there's some graphic videos that I can show of people killing goats and stuff like that. But before that time, yeah, they would change the diet of the animal so that the insides are clean and the meat itself is clean and everything like that. So, no, that would make sense for those that do that. And then in terms of that last question, I know we'll be discussing that during the break. and then come back with some sort of answer, probably next question and answer period. And that's for those that are online. If you didn't get a chance to ask a question, that's what the question and answer periods are for. And then that way you don't interrupt the teacher with comments and questions while they are going on. That was allowed today, but in general, that is not something that we want to have happen because it is distracting for those that are trying to pay attention online. Just like somebody wouldn't just jump up here and just say whatever they felt like while somebody was teaching as well. So that's just rules of engagement. So once again, thanking Yehovah God for our lives. Thank you for strength and good health and the opportunity to go forth throughout his word this day and praying that no one was led astray, nothing was taught wrong. But it's incumbent upon all of us to study so that we can learn. And this portion was very important for us because there was many things that we can apply today. Hallelujah. Blessed be.